Welcome to another edition of TrilliumTalkTV. Something different, something better. Now, viewers, I know what you're thinking. My guest, Michael Tuck, looks a lot more confident and self-assured and committed than you expected him to be. Well, that's actually because my guest tonight is not Michael Tuck. Michael had to bail at the very last minute. But David Loft has stepped in. He's the Trillium Party's own candidate for York-Simcoe. David, thank you for being a part of Trillium Talk TV.
It's my pleasure.
Now, before we start the interview, though, I would like to take a moment and remember Michael Tuck's brave and committed candidacy.
Spend all your time waiting for that second chance, for a break that would make it okay.
Well, David, you're going to stick around longer than 2 days, right? You've been around longer than 2 days.
I have. I've been around since I'm one of the very first ones, I would think.
Well, now, I've got to ask, what's your background? You weren't always in politics. What were you doing before joining the Trillium Party?
After I finished in the business, if you will, I had sold real estate for the last 10 or 12 years of my working life. I had purchased a number of properties. I think I had somewhere around eight or whatever. At one time, duplexes, triplexes, and I found that I spent all my time fixing toilets and painting and doing floors and chasing down tenants. So I decided at one point that enough was enough. I was going to sell them, which I did, and look for something else to do.
Well, you want to be used to dirty work in case you actually make it into Queen's Park.
Yeah,
there might be some toilets to fix there, too.
I've
Metaphorically speaking, of course.
Been there, done that.
Now, the business of business, what does that mean specifically?
Well, you know, when you're in business, you better, if you're going to be successful, you're going to have to know a fair bit about accounting. You're going to have some legal background or develop a legal background. You're going to have be able to get along with people and be able to make people understand what your motives are, and you have to understand what their motives are and what they want out of your company and what the company can do for them. Yeah, you have to be a little bit of everything, a bit of a jack of all trades.
Now, who were you with that you developed this experience?
Primarily, I started with Triad Financial Services, and then and that led me into a number of companies with the bus lines in Quebec and the printing company up in Owen Sound, and a number of companies all over. I ended up traveling across the United States on behalf of Triad, with various objectives, whether it's buying equipment or marketing some new computers, which we got involved in way back when, and just jack of all trades.
Oh yeah. So they were a corporate financier?
Yes.
Financier?
Yeah.
Now, what got you into politics afterwards?
I guess just frustration. I saw the things that weren't getting done, the things that should be getting done, and I wondered why they weren't getting done. And just as the Lieutenant Governor says, that people are looking for appointments and people are looking for benefits outside of the realm of politics. And the situation, of course, is that if you criticize the leader, or you criticize a program, or you criticize another member of your party, your political career is done. It's finished. And I take a look at York-Simcoe and Carolyn Mulroney. Carolyn Mulroney, I'm sure she's a wonderful person. I've never met her, but I don't think being the representative for York-Simcoe is where she plans to stop her political career. I think she's got something else planned down the road, and that's evidenced by the fact that she ran for the leadership. So is Carolyn Mulroney going to oppose Doug Ford in anything that Doug Ford does? No. If Doug Ford decides that the Thane's smelter cleanup is not even on his priority list. It's not on his priority list. It's not going to get there. She's not going to. I just can't see how she can criticize the party for not getting it on the priority list.
Now,
and similarly,
I was going to ask though, in provincial politics, is it important for local MPPs to raise awareness about issues in their constituency?
Absolutely.
Can you think of any examples where this made a difference?
Oh, I look at Frank Cleese with his situation with the orange helicopters. He made a huge difference, and that was not just in his local, but across the province. And I say that it didn't matter what party he was. It's just the fact that as an individual, he did a good job with it. And why there aren't more people and more MPPs out there trying to do a good job on behalf of their constituents is a wonder to me. They have a lot of fundraisers. They have a lot of people who donate. They put an ad in the paper every issue. They show up at the barbecues. They get their picture taken, and they've got the money behind them that's coming from basically you and I, the taxpayer.
Well, you mentioned the smelter cleanup issue. What's going on in York-Simcoe? What's going on with the government in action? Has this been going on for a while?
Well, there's been no action for a while. That's the problem. And the smelter, the buildings have been taken down, but the ground remains essentially contaminated. And the list of chemicals which are sitting in that ground, and it starts with arsenic and lead, and I've got a list of them at home, but that site is 650 meters away from a stream, a river, if you will, that flows into Lake Simcoe. And that's where all those chemicals are going to end up. And it's not a question of maybe. I mean, the fact is they will. Because every rain that goes down just pushes it closer to Lake Simcoe. And who knows what over the last 28 years, 24 years, has gone into Lake Simcoe. But a bunch of it, I'm sure. And you take a look at a situation that happened. We've all heard the expression grassy narrows, right? And the issues that the Indigenous people had with grassy narrows and the mercury poisoning and the slow, painful, tortuous deaths. And basically nothing happened. At one time they threw, I think it was $16 million to the Indigenous, the natives there, and said that's it. And still a problem continued. And I think it was October, November of this year, Kathleen Wynne decided she was going to set aside $85 million for the cleanup of this. This goes back to the late 60s.
And for those of us who are uninformed, so in the late 60s, what happened?
Well, her comment, and that's when they discovered that all of this mercury is in the water and it's in the soil. It's leaking into it. The fish are now contaminated with mercury. The Indigenous people are eating the walleye and the fish out of it, and the poison's ending up in them. And when Kathleen Wynne put forth her $85 million in, I don't know, September, October, somewhere in there, she said, gee, I didn't know there was a problem. Are you kidding me? If she didn't know there was a problem, she's got to be the only one in the province, because everybody else knew.
Now, are there any other major local issues that your constituents are going to care about?
Well, I think they should certainly be caring about the Upper York Region Waste Disposal Plant. And they're planning on building a waste disposal plant which will handle and pump into Cooks Bay and Lake Simcoe 40 million liters of water a day. Now, right now, all of that effluent, if you will, goes down the main pipe out of and into Toronto, where it's processed. And of course, what they're saying is that Well, with all of the new development up in our region, in York-Simcoe, that we should look after our own. But the reality is it's not quite that way, because it's as much their problem, if not more, than what it is our problem. And I'll tell you why. It's because if you drive down Highway 48 and go through Markham and start taking a look at the size of the apartment buildings that are going there, and if you take a look at the size of the apartment buildings and condos that are being built in Toronto right now, it's easy to see why that sewage system can get overloaded. It's got nothing to do with the 400 houses that are maybe developed or built up in Sutton. That's nothing compared to the strain on the system that's being put on the system by Toronto.
Well, now, it sounds like one of the major problems is just population growth in general. I mean, is that something your constituents care about? What about the Maple Lakes Estates project?
Well, we certainly care about Maple Lake Estates simply because we don't like the idea of all of that timber being cut down and encroaching upon what's now a protected, or should be a protected area. In fact, it's a provincially designated watershed. I mean, there's lots of places up in lakes. I mean, if you haven't driven up around York-Simcoe lately, there's lots of places to build subdivisions that you don't need to chop down 200 acres of trees.
Well, now, for those outside of York-Simcoe, what is the project? Talk a little bit about the history of it and what's happening now.
Well, like I say, it's the DG Group bought that particular parcel of land, roughly 400 acres, in the late 90s from a bankrupt developer, and have sat on it. They got a planning approval done 34 years ago, an ONB report that's 28 years old, and a subdivision plan that was registered 26 years ago. But what's happened in that interval, that 26-year interval, is phosphorus levels on the lake have gone up, and in between that time, the province designated that area as a provincially significant wetland, and thou shalt not build on a provincially significant wetland. So they've had no shortage of negotiations with the DG Group in order to switch land and do this and do that, but so far there's been no agreement. But what has happened is that the DG Group have now got the approval to basically start cutting trees, and away you go.
Who gave them the approval to do that?
Lake Simcoe Regional Conservation Authority.
Wow, so having another layer of government didn't protect the town council's decision at all.
No, in fact, it went in reverse.
And it doesn't sound like it protected the environment either.
No, and their obligation, as I understand it, was to say no to it.
So how has this not gotten any traction among the other candidates? Are they just being whipped into compliance by their party leaders?
The Liberal candidate has been supportive of the I'm going to say the North Gwillimbury Forest Alliance that is opposing that development. They stand with the Trillium Party. The Conservative Party with Carolyn Rooney, we never heard anything from them. Didn't call in, write in, stand up, speak up, or show up at any of the meetings. So,
is there any affiliation between the DG Group and Carolyn Mulroney, the Conservative Party in general?
I cannot confirm or deny. I know she has significant contributions from various developers. I know that for a fact. And I do know for a fact that the DG Group, amongst others, contribute significantly to the provincial parties and probably to all of those that were involved in the leadership campaign. They don't do it simply by writing a check from the DG Group. It's from this secretary and that secretary and that secretary and all the way along the line.
Yeah, you just twist enough people's arms, and
Oh no,
it doesn't matter what the campaign individual
they
limit
just
is.
then compensate them, so it's
That works too. Now, why should you be the representative from York-Simcoe in Queen's Park? Why should people vote for you?
you know that's a good question. I will not be following the beaten path. I have no political aspirations beyond representing the York-Simcoe voters. I am not looking for any political appointments. I'm not looking for any jobs when this is all done. I basically came out of retirement in order to do this. I have no axe to grind, or I've got a lot of axes to grind on behalf of the people, the voters, but I have no financial obligation to anybody. Can't be bought. Speak my mind. Speak the mind of the people. One of the ladies made a very, very interesting comment. Excuse me, when she was speaking at the meeting of the Lake Simcoe Regional Conservation Authority when they were approving the Section 28 permit, which gave the DG Group the permission in order to build on the Maple Lake Estates property. And she made the comment, she said, "When I give you my vote, I lose my voice." And when you think about it, she's so true. When she gives you her vote, she loses her voice. But when she votes for me, she ain't got to lose her voice. Okay? Because I'm going to express her voice loud and clear.
Right on. Now, you've got a pretty substantial background in business and in real estate. Are there any general issues that affect Ontarians that you specifically are interested in?
I specifically would like to see the sex education program rewritten. That program was put together by Ben Levine when he was the Deputy Minister of Education, working for Kathleen Wynne. Ben Levine was, I'm not saying convicted, he pled guilty to 3 offenses. One was distributing child pornography, writing child pornography, and encouraging child pornography. He was admitted to the judge that had committed incest with his daughters. And to me, he would be the last person on this planet who would write my sex education curriculum. And I'd simply take it, rip it up, start all over again, only this time legitimately involve the parents, because although Kathleen Wynne says that those parents were consulted, no, they weren't. There was 4,000 letters that were sent out to various Liberals across the province, and I think it was like 1,400 replied, and we don't even know what the replies said. Okay, but I think we'd start all over again with that.
Now, do you see the deputy minister's fingerprints in various places throughout the
he
changes
wrote
in the
it.
curriculum? Well, he wrote it, but is there anything particularly nefarious that you see in there?
Anything, you know what, I know I'm not going to get into the details of the program, but there's lots of stuff that you wouldn't want your child to get exposed to starting in grade 1. And I believe that sex education should be a part of our school curriculum. I just don't think grade 1 so we're the place to start.
Fair enough. Oh, we've got a comment from Facebook. This one's from Jan Hansen. Isn't the Conservation Authority supposed to conserve things like trees?
Well, yes.
Well, so yeah. How is it that they're going around the Ontario Municipal Board, they're going around Town Council in saying, we approve of cutting down this forest, development's close to the lake, there's no big deal?
Well, it's speechless. Of course they're that. I mean, isn't that the job? It's your job to protect provincially significant wetlands, to protect the trees, protect the natural habitat. Now, I mean, there's a place where trees have to be cut down or should be cut down, but not in an area which is already designated as an area where we shouldn't be cutting down these trees. Yeah, that's their job.
Well, in general, like what's the health of Lake Simcoe? It's not just phosphorus that's a problem, right?
Well, phosphorus is a big problem because phosphorus will increase the algae, growth of algae. And what it also does is that it gets out into the lake and goes down. And what it will do is affect the cold water fish that are in the lake. And that is specifically the whitefish, the lake trout, and whatever pickerel are left in Lake Simcoe. And those fish are used by the Chippewas every day to feed themselves. And if you kill off or if you compromise the habitat of those particular fish, then what are you saying to the Chippewas?
And building new subdivisions and tearing up wetlands next to the lake, that doesn't help the phosphorus levels.
Not a bit.
No, people will have to put their laundry detergent somewhere.
Well, you know, at one point there was talk of a golf course going in there, a 9-hole golf course. Well, remember that a golf course can use various fertilizers and various weed killers that you can't use on your front lawn because they're exempted from all of this stuff, all of the stuff that you're using. And not to say that phosphorus level is particularly high in what they use, but there's some. And it's similarly when you go to the upper York sewage solution and the 40 million liters of water that are going back into the lake that I mentioned to you. You know that water may be pretty clear and pretty clean. Mind you, having said that, they're not going to use it at Queen's Park in order to fill their water coolers. But you only need a minute amount per liter. And when you're putting that amount of water, 40 million liters a day in, I can tell you that the Chippewas are very, very concerned because it's just the volume. The volume. Now, how can you turn around? How can anyone turn around and say we will compromise or we'll do something that may increase the phosphorus level when the phosphorus level is already too high and we want to reduce it? It doesn't make sense.
Now, is that something you would consider doing if you got into Queen's Park? Pull the Aaron Brockovich, bring them all glasses of water from the output?
I'd love to. I wouldn't bring Aaron, though. I'd do it myself.
There we go. Right on. Is there anything you'd like to say to your constituents to cap off this section of Trillium Talk?
The only thing I would ask you to do is energize your ballot. I will take your voice and I'll take it to Queen's Park, and I'll express what you want, and I will fight for what you want, and I'm not one who quits. I've been there, done that, taken on the 6'2" guys in the corner to get the puck, and I'm not afraid of who I face. Been there, like I say, done that. I will represent you fairly and honestly, and what comes out of my mouth will be the straight goods.
Fantastic. Well, thanks very much for being on the program, David. Stay tuned. We're going to have Bob Yaciuk on the show for This Week in ONpoli. Welcome to another edition of This Week in ONpoli on TrilliumTalkTV. I'm here with Bob Yaciuk. Bob is the leader of the Trillium Party. He joins us every Tuesday to discuss the past week in Ontario politics.
Hey, great to be here. This has been an interesting week. But first of all, let me compliment you, David Loft, our candidate in York-Simcoe, I believe it is.
York-Simcoe.
And, oh my gosh, he is so dedicated. That guy, he gets up every day. He's out knocking on doors. He doesn't. He's given everything he has. So if you can get out there, you can help David Loft spread the message. He's local. He understands the issues better than anyone. You'll be doing something good for everyone in York-Simcoe. So how about this week in Ontario politics? It's been pretty exciting.
Well, it looks like our credit card charges are going to be worse for wear. Moody's is thinking, they haven't done it yet, but they're thinking about downgrading Ontario's credit rating.
Well, maybe they should. What should we expect? They said that they will downgrade Ontario's credit rating if this budget passes. Bill 31. You see, a lot of people, when Kathleen Wynne brought her budget out, it was a nice shiny cover. In fact, how much did it cost to have the cover designed? I think it was $650,000 or something like that for the cover. $650,000. You could buy half a house in Toronto. Or you could buy 3 houses in North America. But $650,000 to design a cover. Why couldn't they just put black letters on it and say Ontario budget 2018? Save $59,000. Oh, anyways, a lot of money. No, I can't do the math. Anyway.
Well, I'm sure just like the logo designers from the cannabis distributors, they got good value for the money they spent in terms of graphic design and creative vision.
You know, aside from your hair, Greg, your sense of sarcasm, and I like... I think I like your sense of sarcasm.
Oh, you like the hair now. You were making fun of it back when it was long.
Well, you know what they say about weird-looking hair, Greg? It's hair. I'm speaking to someone that doesn't have any. Anyways, the budget. What everybody's seen, what Kathleen presented was this big, huge gift parade to buy votes left, right, and center. And the reason she did it was because buying votes in Ontario works. You give them a whole bunch of money, you give them a whole bunch of stuff and promises at least, and people will vote for you. It's worked over and over and over again for the last 40 years. And so why wouldn't they keep doing it? That being said, Moody's, the people who are regulating the borrowing of money, have said, hey, if you let that budget go through, we're lowering your credit rating. And I forget the amount that's going to increase the deficit by, but as soon as they lower the credit rating, then our interest rate changes. I think it's something like $11 billion or something like that a year that it goes up. But regardless, it's a big, huge number that we could treat a lot more people that need help with mental health or hospitals or housing. That's a lot of money. And remember I said, so the thing that Kathleen Wynne presented was that nice shiny book that holds up everywhere. The real guts of a budget is this. They have to ratify it in the House of Parliament. And they have to vote on it. And that's called Bill 31. And Bill 31 is where we said, okay, all the things that the Liberals want to put forward in the budget, we have to vote on to make it so. There's something in there, there's a section in there, and it is Schedule 21. And in that schedule, it's like all these Liberal omnibus bills that are being done, where we front the first part of it all up with all the good stuff that makes you, if you vote against it, you're a communist. And then they slide all the nonsense and the evil, nefarious stuff in the backside. Don't laugh. And in there, and in Schedule 21, it allows the Crown. It's written down, and they're about to vote on it, written down that they are allowed to borrow up to $16 billion without a buyer leave. And that...
Well, now, that's just ridiculous. I mean, we're already in so much debt. We have such a deficit. Surely the other major parties shot this down immediately.
The other major party... I love the way you feed me here. I'll take it. Why isn't every other one of them...
Slow and straight.
That's the only way I'm getting a home run, pal. Why isn't every other major party screaming blue murder and say, look at what they're trying to hide here. Schedule 21. They're going to be borrowing $16 billion. Yeah, $16 billion. And they should be saying, no. You know why they're not saying anything? I don't believe they're blind. I don't believe they're stupid. What they're doing, why they're not saying anything is because they want to have the same ability should they get into office. Because they're up in the air right now. Right now we have the PCs riding pretty high in the polls. So they're thinking, why would I get rid of that? It sounds pretty cool to be able to get $16 billion. And we can blame the Liberals on it. No, you should be doing your job. PCs, you should be doing your job, stepping up to the plate, alerting all the people in Ontario to what's going on there. That's what the job of the opposition parties is trying to alert the people and trying to put a stop to the nonsense that's going on here. You too, NDP, just Do your job. Represent the people. Just this once.
But
Stop it.
Bob, psychologically this makes sense. I mean, if you're in a situation where you have shared finances with someone and they have spending habits that are just increasing the amount of debt you have two choices. One is to try and work with them to rein in their spending habits and create a budget that's responsible, that addresses the things that you need, but doesn't allow you to live beyond your means. Or you can max out the credit card on stuff that you want, because you're screwed no matter what. Either way, you might as well have a good time.
You, mister, would be a bad parent. You're going to go buy a new Ferrari and let your kids eat hot dogs. Well, no, they'd like hot dogs. You're going to let your kids eat cat food trying to pay off for your new Ferrari that's long gone. And that's what all this borrowing is doing.
It's actually a little bit worse than that in the provincial sense. It's as if the kids co-signed on the Ferrari loan.
Exactly. I like the way you do that. I like the way your analogy there.
Well, now Moody's, the credit rating downgrade, that's also related to something that was said by the Auditor General regarding Ontario's finances.
Nefarious bookkeeping?
Well, it turns out our deficit is no longer $6.7 billion. It's projected to be $11.7 billion.
That's just crazy talk. And when you're trying to get elected, they probably will say it's $1 billion. The point is, there's bookkeeping. We have Ontario standards or accepted Ontario standards. And when you move off of those standards, then it's called nefarious and bogus bookkeeping. The Auditor General called it for exactly what it was. Greg, if you were to do that, if I was to do that, if our former guest David Loft or anybody else was to do that in this province, you'd have the CRA all over you trying to beat you senseless until you paid back every cent, and they'd be browbeating you. But apparently it's okay for the people to make the rules in order to get elected to say whatever they want. The Governor General needs more teeth, or Auditor General needs more teeth, and that's in the Trillium platform. Give the Auditor General more teeth, able to check out records, and make it law that they have to give those records and make them look for not just accounting errors, but also initiatives, put initiatives in place to rectify it. We trust the Auditor General. At least I trust the Auditor General. But the problem is the government listens to what they say and disregards it. People hear what they say. They get out, listen to the radio shows, and they scream blue murder for a little while. But you know what they do? Then they go watch a cat video on the internet or something like that. Hey, look at this. You can be effective. You can change things. You can't change it from within. Doug Ford's never changing it, and that's been demonstrated by several things that have happened in the last 6 weeks. He's not going to change it. The NDP aren't going to change it because they're all part of the problem. You don't get 330 or 390, if you believe in $1 billion in debt, with one premier.
Well, Bob, I have to interrupt you for two reasons. One, we've got a comment from Elizabeth Marshall. Bill 31 has gone through its second reading. And two, I will not sit here idly while you denigrate lolcats. Okay? Those videos entertain people, and if someone wants to spend their Saturday or Catterday watching videos on YouTube.
I'm going to suggest this. As long as you're watching cat videos with your kids, your wife, your husband, because it is Ontario.
What if you live in your parents' basement?
Well, watch it with your parents.
Okay.
Wait, maybe there's a reason. You should be out trying to find a date. Socialize with people. Get off that YouTube. Get out there and integrate with people. We're becoming isolationists. We gotta look people in the eye. We gotta get involved.
Now, Elizabeth has responded. It turns out Bill 31 also has things in it that have nothing to do with the budget. This is some truly scary stuff. All aboard the omnibus.
I like that. I'm going to steal that. All aboard the omnibus. They have slid so many things through in these omnibus bills. The budget seems to be the granddaddy of them all right now. But they've done it so many times in the past. We've talked about the radar thing, right? The school radar. They front end load these things and they say something like, we want to put speed detector radar devices in school safety zones to protect the children because the children are so valuable to us. Who's going to vote against that? I don't even like photo radar. And I was like, okay, maybe that's okay. Oh, and then the next sentence says, and other places deemed unsafe. Wait a minute, that means anywhere they feel like it. You can't be hiding things in the budget anymore. The Trillium Party of Ontario has written down in its platform that we will not allow omnibus bills, and that's the irony of it all, with the exception of the budget, which has to be an omnibus bill. But we have to tear these bills apart one by one. Too often, you're sitting MPPs, they get a synopsis written by a bureaucrat that says, instead of reading a bill that is so thick, what they do is they get a bunch of other people to read these bills. And they say, okay, give me the highlights. Then they say, that's right, that's wrong. A simple word in the budget or in a bill that says shall or may. Will, changing one word from may to the word will, can change the entire nature of a budget.
Now, Bob, why does the budget have to be an omnibus bill?
Well, it has to be an omnibus bill because it encompasses the whole direction for the problem. You
What's
can't have
actually
every
first-
line by line.
Let's ask,
it
what's
would be
the
a
definition
4-year project
of an omnibus bill?
An omnibus bill is something that incorporates many different laws at once, affects many different things at once.
Okay, so you vote on the budget, approve or reject. You don't vote line by line by line because
That's right, because it'd be a 7-year project.
Okay.
And, you know, they never used to be so controversial. You know why? Because we used to actually trust the politicians. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, there used to be a time when we actually trusted politicians. They used to be a little bit slightly above used car salesmen. Now used car salesmen, I have a lot of respect for you since I'm looking for a new one. But they have such a bad reputation. You know, right now, less than 50% of the people vote. In some areas, it's 40 and 35%. They're not, you know, the reason I believe they're not voting is because they don't think it makes a single difference who you vote in. It's us and them. The Trillium Party wants to be part of the us because they are all the same and they're all to blame. You don't get $390 billion in debt by the last government. It's been going on for 30 years, 40 years right now.
Well, I mean, they gave their own.
They gave a good pun.
They gave it their best. You know, the attitude.
And if you think the next government, the PCs are any better, wake up, smell the coffee. Let's look at some things that happened with the glorious leader of the...
Well, hang on a second.
Okay.
I'm getting deja vu. You know, the budget being $5 billion out of whack. The Auditor General looking over the budget figures, the deficit figures, and saying, well, no, there's really a deficit that's roughly $5 billion more than you're saying this. Does this feel like deja vu to you too? Does this remind you of 2003 when some other nefarious accounting was going on with the deficit in the budget?
I don't know what you're talking about, right?
Okay.
This is part of the problem. You remember when we threw out the PCs way back? Oh, I'm going to suggest the answer to you is this. No. We threw out the PCs way back when they were in the government. Why did we throw them out? A lot of the same stuff that's going on right now. And then we replaced them with the Liberals. And why did we throw the Liberals out? Because of a lot of the same stuff that's going on. And before the PCs, I believe it was Liberals? Yeah. Or NDP. It was NDP.
Bob Ray.
Why did we throw them out? Oh, a lot of the same stuff that's going on. Let's break the cycle. Break the cycle. Elect a Trillium Party MPP and at least give it a try. If it's good for your riding, you're a MPP. David Loft, the guest that was in here before me, you know, if I tell David how to vote because I'm the party leader, if I tell David how to vote in an upcoming bill, I can promise you, I've had a lot of coffees with David Loft. He'll tell me to go pound salt. He's going to vote for exactly what's good for his riding. Doesn't matter what I say. And that's the quality of MPP that we want to get into provincial parliament. That's the quality of MPP that you should want to have into provincial parliament. Doesn't matter whether they're Liberal. Doesn't matter whether they're Conservative. Doesn't matter whether they're NDP. Because what they are is respecting you. That's
Now, Bob, I just got to say, you know, we... talking about leaders with principles and candidates with principles, what's wrong with Doug Ford? I mean, sure, he's flip-flopped on a couple of issues early on,
Flip-flop.
but now when he says something... Well, hang on, Bob. Now, I'm sure when he says something, he sticks to his guns. You can take what he says to the bank. You can bury it with the family jewels, and it will never change.
We had a candidate that joined us for exactly 2 days. before he left. Doug Ford's latest promise lasted 1 day before he changed it. What was it? It was about the green belt. Doug Ford basically says we're going to open up the green belt, the Oak Ridges Moraine, the Niagara Escarpment. And he says we're going to allow development on it. And then today he had a second thought. He said, "Well, I listened to the people." That's because he had his arse handed to him in the overnight polls, and he's going to listen to the people and say, "No, the green belt's going to stand." Come on. He showed his cards. Not only did he show his cards this time, but he showed his cards when he was running for council. For council, he said he's basically going to pave over the Oak Ridges Moraine. He was recorded in that with a room full of developers. Ladies and gentlemen, I propose to you that this was showing the true card. Developing the green belt? Nah, I was just kidding. Yeah, come on.
It sounds like Ford has no focus.
Okay, let's do this. How many different Fords do we have? We have the Fiesta. Come on, Greg.
We have the Pinto. Not anymore. Too many of them exploded when they got hit from behind.
Oh my god. Yeah. Well, that's because. Never mind. We're not going to do any more for it. We'll just have to issue a recall notice and make this shiny new Ford go away.
Now, okay, so the green belt, we're not going to pay over the green belt if the Conservatives are elected. But
wait. Do you believe that? Because you'll buy this watch. Oh, you bought it earlier today. That's right.
Well, I don't know what to believe anymore.
Let's look at the track record. So Doug Ford wanted to get elected, and there's the Patrick Brown platform that he was going on. And he signed a piece of paper saying he would stick to the Patrick Brown platform. And then as soon as he got the go-ahead to be elected, he said, "Oh, no, we're not doing that." And then he stole our platform. Well, you know what? He implemented our platform, which is a good move on his part because it's what the people wanted. And then, so 6 days later, all of a sudden, when he said that he was going to put marijuana distribution in the private sector because that's the proper way to do it, and it'd be the safest way to get it done and the least expensive and, well, the best. 6 days later, no, we're going to keep the LCBO model. I got what I want, and I become the leader. And then 10 days later, he says, well, the 6-ed curriculum, at the bottom of the totem pole on things that I'm going to do in Ontario. And, in a province that has thousands of things wrong with it, when a politician has the guts to say it's at the bottom of a totem pole, you're never seeing that again. That's dead. And how about this whole windmill deal?
Well, what about the windmill deal?
Okay.
Surely, once the Conservatives are in power, they're going to scrap the windmills, and we can just power Ontario with hydro and nuclear, as we have ample capacity to do so.
I get kind of wound up about politics. I have a passion towards it, and I have a passion towards helping people. That's just my thing. But someone that should be a little bit more wound up more than me right now would be Tanya Granick-Allen. Oh my gosh, if you remember her in the debates, I'm going to rip out those windmills. Sex education curriculum, gone! So, now, Doug Ford has said he's going to implement the Fair Hydro Act. And I have the Fair Hydro Plant Act. And he's going to continue with it. Now, unfortunately, the preamble of the Fair Hydro Act, if he does implement it, because who knows anymore, it might be just to get him elected. The preamble in the Fair Hydro Plan says that those windmills are guaranteed to be there forever. Then it's written down. The government of Ontario is committed to fostering the development of a clean, modern, reliable electricity system. Sounds good so far. With a diverse supply mix. You can read between the lines. The government is also committed to removing barriers to and promoting opportunities for renewable and clean energy projects. These commitments, this is it, can only be achieved if costs are shared fairly among consumers today and in the future. That is the reality of that statement. Says whatever the cost is to put those things up, you are agreeing to share it. Sucks to be you if you got a job and you're paying taxes, drive a car, heat your house, want to eat.
So it's really cemented into place.
You know how deep those platforms are that they build those hydro towers on, or those windmills? They're I forget the numbers, like 30, 40 feet deep, those platforms. Unbelievable. And they don't even have to remove them after the windmill's life expectancy of 20 years is gone. They just have to have, I think it's 1 meter of dirt over top of them. So I was driving out to London Windsor the other day and doing a party event that I had to look after. And I went through those windmill fields. Oh my gosh. There are 1,000 windmills there. Unbelievable.
Awfully scenic, and I'm sure you'd do the same
Well,
drive
actually,
again just to look at the windmills.
It was kind of cool to look at, but so was a fire. So, I mean, they're not good. They're hurting people. Windmills are hurting people. And there's so many people getting sick from it. And the sad part is we don't need the windmills. We have so much electricity. We have a tunnel in Niagara Falls that is capable of generating, and I forget the mega watts. It's closed. The cleanest, most free energy you can get, water power. It's closed.
So what do they do with the water? They divert it?
It goes over the falls. Good for tourists. Good for tourists. But it's become so bastardized, and you're paying the bill, and you're being tricked into this next election into supporting more of the same old, same old.
Now, hang on a second. So let's circle back to Doug Ford and the Greenbelt. So he's, for the moment, decided we're not developing the Greenbelt. We're not going to pave it over. We're not going to wreck the Oak Ridges Moraine. Just bear with me.
What time is it? Because that could change.
Well, it's 7:20 on a Tuesday afternoon.
Thank God we're live, because this is an actual true statement right now.
It's a true statement for the moment. But
reruns it might not be.
Now, we know that developers have their hand in provincial politics with many parties. He must have some developers supporting him. Is there some sort of alternate development plan?
Well, of course I can't say that and choose to live without a lawyer.
But wasn't some statement made to the effect of, but we'll develop some other rural places?
Okay. The deal was this. Doug Ford said that we have to open some area for the development of land. And of course, remember that radar thing I said, how to protect the children, but it's going to be for community housing. Nobody can possibly be that stupid to think that they're going to open up this land and build all community housing. That's the doorway that's supposed to make it nice and cozy. They're going to put up high rises, they're going to put up houses. But I want you to know that when we take land from here, we're going to replace it with land somewhere else in Ontario, because we got to keep the total acreage even. I guarantee you, the land that they're going to replace it right now still has snow on it. You know, and now what should be raising the concern is anyone that's watching this show right now, anyone that heard this stuff should be saying, when the Oak Ridges Moraine, Niagara Escarpment come in, when the Oak Ridges Moraine came in, and if you had let's say 10 acres of land that was covered with the Oak Ridges Moraine, where the Oak Ridges Moraine is, it might be worth, let's say, $1 million. And I just pulled that out of my head. So
your head?
My head.
Okay.
I'm sticking with it.
Okay.
Okay. Out of my head. And it's on record now, it's written down, that your land devalued by 90% as soon as it was classified under the Oak Ridges Moraine. So, no one cares about you because you're Greg LaRue and you're loaded. But you know,
I've got some fans on the program now. I think we had a troll at one point too.
But let me tell you, now they got to go find land that they want to give in replacement of this. Maybe it'll be the next person out in the rural. They are sacrificing rural Ontario to the wolves. They're cutting back the schools. They're cutting back the health care. I have a debate, all leaders debate in on the 7th up in the Muskoka area.
So the other leaders are going to be there, and you'll get to stare them down face to face, right?
Well, first of all, I'm going to bet $1,000 they're going to be afraid to show up.
What kind of odds can I get on that?
You're not getting any odds. Because now you're starting to sound like a politician. I'm going to gamble. No. Wait a second. I just said that, didn't I?
At 10 to 1 or better,
I am not gambling.
Okay,
that is not a gamble. I'm saying I'm going to take your $1,000 if you bet.
But I mean, surely, the leaders, they care about rural ridings like Muskoka, cottage country. They care about the issues there, and they will go.
They're putting a dam up right in the middle of Bala, right in the middle, tourist country. What they have going for them in Bala is this wonderful tourist property. A wonderful tourist area. People come diving, schooling. In the center of town, they have this waterfall. Well, they decide to put up a dam right in the middle of that. Ontario has too much electricity to the point where we're giving it or paying the United States to take it, and Quebec, and let's build a dam in Bala. Come on,
Does
it'll
Samsung
destroy
build dams?
the town. I didn't know. I didn't think so, but hey, somebody
I mean,
got a
it
contract.
could be
Someone.
the connection there.
Yeah.
Well, we've got another comment from Tracy Yaciuk. What is going on with the CBC debate? So are you going to be in the CBC debate finally?
Well, I am so glad you asked. The CBC debate is an interesting little quandary. It's so dynamic right now. So this is I'll summarize it a little bit. See, Kathleen Wynne, I believe, was pushing for the Green Party to be in the CBC debate. And I'm sure the reasoning was we want the Green Party in there to try and suck some votes off the PC and that sort of thing. That's just politics. That's fair enough. I'm okay with pushing for it. Now, CBC says, nope, nobody can be in the CBC debate unless they have a sitting member of parliament. They forgot about us. We're the fourth party in provincial parliament, as recognized by the Liberals in Hansard. So now, now CBC kind of shot themselves in the foot. Oh, now they make a new rule. Now, so our lawyers are on this right now. So they made a new rule. It has to be an elected member. Well, Jack McLaren's elected, you silly sods, because you can't sit in Parliament unless you are elected. We have to have a full slate. There's not a single party that has a full slate.
Your representative can't be named Jack.
You can't be anything other than the big three. So then they say, it has to be elected as a member of, in keeping with past standard, it has to be elected as a representative of your party. Really? Well, I remember one election, I think it was in 1990 something or rather, when PCs amalgamated with the Canadian Alliance when they were down to 2 seats and lost party status. So then they amalgamated with the Canadian Alliance, and that means not a single member, and they call themselves the Conservative Party. Not a single member was elected as a Conservative. Not a single member was elected. So they have broken every rule. They're scrambling so hard now. Now we're working with them legally, and we're going to be launching two lawsuits, I remember, against them until they stand up and recognize there's a movement afoot.
Well,
it's a Trillium movement.
I'll tell you what, Bob. If the irrelevant old school media like the CBC, the Canadian Brainwashing Corporation, doesn't want to have you on, I will personally reread the questions to you as if, I were...
Great. I might call you on that. I think a live town hall while the CBC thing, because nobody can fight CBC. Hey, listen to this too. So the CBC is funded by the federal government. Fair enough. CBC is funded by the Liberals. Fair enough. Majority government. I think let's follow the dots here. Did you know in the federal Liberal Constitution and the provincial Liberal Constitution, they are committed to having to help each other? Political interference? And they have the nerve to criticize what's going on in the States, ironically. Anyways, that's just pie in the sky stuff.
Personally, I didn't think it was any better when Harper was in power.
Well, he should have got rid of them, eh?
Yeah.
You got nothing more than that.
No
smart car remarks. No smart.
I got nothing. Well, you know what? That's as good a time as any to.
Well, we haven't talked about our newest member.
We have a newest member.
Oh well, we had.
Who's our newest member?
Mike Tuck. Oh, get rid of that music. I heard that music on there. No, we're classier than that.
I don't know if you remember the beginning, but I actually did talk about Mike Tuck. That's our show for this week. Thank you very much, Ontario, and we will see you next Tuesday.
Support Trillium so we can support you.